for our audience, things going on outside of what's right in front of our face in tech. So if you get off of Twitter, you stop talking about OpenClaw, stop talking about Department of War stuff. We'll get into that a little bit, but what are the other things going on? One of the cool spotlights that I've seen recently in just social media is AI being practiced in law. And I think that's a really interesting point and a really interesting industry to get into. So, Travis, I'm really excited today for us to have Oliver here. Oliver Roberts, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So, fun story. Oliver and I went to high school together back in New York. So, early ties. We probably said about 10 words to each other, having sit in a lot of classes together. But it's cool to follow your journey throughout all these years and seeing where you're going with Wickard. We want to get into that. And just if you can give us a little background about Wickard, kind of your story to get there, that'd be really cool for our audience to hear.
Yeah. And yeah, I was a quiet kid back in the day, but happy to be here
Me
and
too,
talking
man.
a lot more.
I did not talk, dude. It's all
Yeah,
good.
happy to be here. We'll talk a lot more today. But yeah, so for background, I wear a couple hats, all of them in the AI space. I'm co-director of the AI Collaborative at Washington University in St. Louis School of Law. I'm an adjunct professor there, a CEO and founder of Wickard, which is an AI education and consulting company. Got into this about a year and a half ago. Originally, I was iterating over building different legal tech products, but I saw a bigger need in the market just for education and consulting on it. A lot of law schools were trying to figure out how do we actually teach law students about the future of AI and what's happening in the legal market, because a lot of these law firms are adopting AI. They have a financial incentive to do so, and there's a lot of client pressure for them to adopt it to try to drop legal costs. So then once legal practice started adopting it, law schools realized, oh, we have to prepare our students to be able to go into practice and use these tools. So I kind of stepped in, started teaching at a bunch of different law schools, and that's basically been the business model. Now we're doing law school AI education and training, and then also training for law firms and lawyers out in real practice of law. So that's how I really got into it, is more of a market need as opposed to let me start an AI consulting and education company.
Love that. Love that. So I'm really curious, what does the application of AI look like in law? So if we started just with people in school, right? What are the tools now that you're teaching for them to have a step up so that if they are, sort of like that entry level associate, that they actually still get hired and that role still exists?
So when I teach students, I teach them like exactly how lawyers are actually using these tools in practice. So I'll get them access to, some schools have access to Harvey, others have access to Co-Counsel, which is from Thomson Reuters, Protege from LexisNexis. So students in my classes are using like these cutting edge tools that lawyers are actually using out in the real world. And that's my big focus, the real world skills. As for how lawyers are using AI right now, pretty widely varied. The leading generative AI tool among lawyers is surprisingly just ChatGPT. It's not some legal tech specific product. And the rationale for that is, I mean, you have millions of lawyers around the country. A lot of the big law firms have the money and access to the top tech tools, but the reality is the majority of lawyers are like solo practitioners, small law firms. They don't have the money to buy these big subscriptions. So they default to the free version of ChatGPT, which raises a bunch of security and confidentiality issues, yet lawyers still do it. And then others just buy an enterprise license to ChatGPT. Maybe they pay like $20 a month for the paid version, but the general purpose models are by far the leading AI tool used by lawyers. And they'll use it for summarizing documents, drafting some early drafts of pleadings. They use it for legal research. Other lawyers will use it for like business development, writing emails, writing LinkedIn posts to promote their business. So it's pretty widely varied in how lawyers are actually using AI in practice.
Very cool. Where do you see the biggest gains? I assume time, right? But then also, where else are you seeing huge productivity results from using this?
Yeah, time and of course quality. I'll address quality first. I do think there's an increase in quality when using AI tools in terms of the writing product. Lawyers that are previously not good at writing can now write pretty well, or if you just put out the substantive content on a piece of paper and then put it into an AI chatbot to ask it to structure this better, improve the spelling, improve the grammar. I think you could significantly improve the writing skills of a lawyer by using an AI chatbot as an assistant. As for the time, it's kind of disputed. I mean, there's areas where it's clear cut, you'll save time. Contract review, you have an AI contract tool that you can literally click a button and it automatically flags all the adverse terms for your client. That will save hours and hours of issue spotting in a contract and revising. Document review, a lot of these big cases involve a lot of documents, really boring stuff. You're literally sitting there reading through documents page by page. That could be thousands of pages. and tens of thousands in big cases. AI can now identify documents that are relevant to your case or not relevant. They can flag certain names and keywords. That saves hours, even days in big cases. Those are clear cut instances where you're saving a lot of time and improving the quality. But in other areas where you're using AI for legal research, there's still the hallucinations issue. So a lot of fake cases, a lot of fake authority getting produced by AI chatbots. There's that trade off. Yes, it might deliver you a quicker work product for legal research, but the lawyers to sit there and verify every case to see if it exists. So there might be that offset where you're not actually saving time in the long run by having to review everything that comes out of an AI chatbot.
Interesting. Where are you seeing a risk trade off? You just mentioned that of, it could do all the summarization in a matter of minutes as opposed to me going for days looking through all these documents, right? What does that look like, or what have you seen in terms of the percent of risk there, where you see hallucinations? Or I know there was that big case a few years ago that came up of the whole thing hallucinated their entire case they were presenting, right? But more recently, where have you seen that inflection point in our journey with AI models and their abilities to where, okay, I can trust this a little bit more, and you see the quality get better and the hallucinations go down?
Yeah. So talking generally in AI, hallucinations have declined in some of the leading models. And usually with web access, there's a significant decline. When a model has web access turned off, like hallucination rates, I saw one study on GPT-5 saying hallucination rates were still in like the 50 to 60% range. But with web access turned on, it's like down in like the single digits. So that was just one study. I know GPT 4.5, OpenAI benchmarked their own model. This was the version that was available back in like July. They said that their own model had hallucination rates of 37.5%. So that's still really high. Imagine on fact based questions, you're still getting 37% of the time getting a fake answer.
Hmm.
In a legal context where obviously veracity is king, you cannot take that risk. So every lawyer is obligated to review the work product. When you file something in court, there's never an excuse. Oh, it was an AI chatbot that told me this. I got it wrong because of that. No, it's like the lawyer's responsibility. Yet there are now over 650 cases in the US where lawyers have filed fake AI hallucinated cases or authorities in courts. This is truly an epidemic. And the risk trade off, I don't think it's that difficult of an assessment. It's literally lawyers have to do their job and verify the accuracy of what they're filing in court. So it's not like, oh, lawyers shouldn't be using AI. They 100% should. It's just don't misuse it. And it's pretty egregious when they do misuse it in such a way where they're not actually reading what they're filing in court.
Yeah, I'm thinking too, like, a lot of kids who are coming out of college, university, maybe undergrad, tend to have that little laziness kind of rise and rise and rise. 'Cause it's like, I don't need to critically think. I can just go get my answers, right? But I assume in the world of
Mhm.
law, right, you have highly motivated individuals who are already shooting to become lawyers and have successful careers. They're still going to use their brains, right? And review what the AI gave it, right? Do you feel like that's kind of consistent? People are still doing their due diligence after the process?
I don't think so. I mean, the reality is, I think a lot of lawyers are lazy and they're not people. I don't know if people, I don't know what people's views are in the general public, but I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of really bad lawyers out there. It's like shocking. And you see that if you're in litigation when you're going up against the other side. It's like absolutely shocking. So no, I do not think that lawyers just de facto do their due diligence, and we've seen that in the number of hallucinated filings out there. It's also just a lack of understanding of how these models work. People just start using it, they get a couple answers they like, and they just think everything out of the chatbot is golden and correct, and it's just really not. So I do think we're in that world where people are placing too much reliance on these AI chatbots. And that's obviously a huge concern, especially in legal, where you need information to be 100% accurate. There's really no excuse to file anything in court that's not 100% accurate.
Are you doing any work around setting up your LLM, or how you train folks to use their LLM in terms of giving it context around, I'm a lawyer, I'm in this sort of, industry within the law practice, just to give it more context around, hey, these are the outcomes I'm desiring out of the session? Or are you building skills? Are you doing anything around plugins or connectors? Or is it really just like, hey, bare bones, hop into ChatGPT, start there at the ground? But where are you trying to make it a little more efficient and effective for users?
Yeah, so two approaches to that. First, there's a difference in how you would prompt a legal tech specific product and a general purpose model like ChatGPT. With general purpose, you're of course alluding to like persona prompting. Persona prompting used to be great for like the GPT series up until like GPT 4.5. Now that the models are unified in GPT-5, it's kind of an open question whether persona prompting is still valuable. There's one study at the University of Pennsylvania from December of last year saying that persona prompting doesn't actually lead to better quality outputs. So they did all these tests saying your physicist answer this question about physics, and they actually did not see an increased quality when telling the model to actually act like an expert in certain domains. It did change the format. They said it'll look like a more professional format. So that's just one study. I still see value in persona prompting. So when I teach students on this, I tell them, hey, like, look at this study. It says there's no increase in quality, but I mean, all prompting is basically iterations. You have to go through your own workflow and work process and see if you're getting value out of the prompt you tried. If you're not, you can iterate on that. So that's using the general purpose models. When prompting legal tech specific tools, they already do the pre prompting on the back end through system messages. So they already have prompts internally that say, act like a lawyer. You're going through a whole contract workflow. You don't need to go re prompt it saying, you are a lawyer, go through this. You're already using a contract tool. The tool already has that in the system messages.
Very cool.
And then have you seen any I love this because it's like what works even just 1 month, 3 months from now, it's a totally different game. Like you said, it's changing quickly. I know in the coding
Mhm.
world even, we've had all sorts of extra add-ons and plugins and frameworks added to Claude Code to get the best, and squeeze the most juice out of it. And then in like December, we just saw this radical step function change in the productivity of these tools with Claude Code, Opus 4.6, especially in recent months. Seeing something similar in the law world where like kind of what you just said reminds me of that, of where it's like almost pulling these vanilla models out with less harnessing or less infrastructure around it almost gets better results. Like what has been kind of that journey over the last 5 months of the models, and have you seen big differences in the more recent months like we have in coding?
Yeah, I mean, it's about 1.5 to 2 years ago, at least in the legal space, there's this talk like, oh, every law firm is going to be hiring prompt engineers. You're going to need these people to come in and be experts in how to prompt. The reality is all these models are moving toward basically just a model posture in which anyone could just prompt a model. And then I'm pretty sure a lot of these models now these days will reformulate your question and draft a better internal prompt and then actually have the system respond. So like just the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower. You don't need to be going in and drafting this expert multi-paragraph prompt. You can put something super simple, it could be totally misspelled, and the model's still able to discern what your intent is and give you a response. Obviously, if you add more detail and context, you'll get a better response. But the reality is these models are able to work even if you just prompt them really poorly. So I do think that been a pretty strong shift in the models, how they're able to perform even without expert detailed prompting.
Oliver, question for you. Can you walk us through sort of the business model of Wickard AI? I just want to really understand and let our audience know, like, what is this offering? What are you doing in the law space specifically to, how you're training people in the industry? And then also, how does that process go? How could people get started?
Mhm. So law firms will hire Wickard to come in and design the whole curriculum, teach the curriculum. Sometimes, and I'll go in and teach a student. So Case Western, we launched the first required law school AI course last year. So it's a 2-day intensive, about 8 hours of in-class contact time, then another 8 to 12 hours of like class assignments and readings. So I'll go in and teach that. I taught all the first year law students last year. We did it again just a couple weeks ago. So that's one model where I'll come and actually teach the students and design the curriculum. Other schools will hire me to train their professors and faculty so that they could then distill that knowledge and then teach it to their students. So there's different models, but essentially at the end of the day, it's just teaching the students directly or teaching the faculty to then teach the students. And a lot of these law schools are not equipped to handle this. Just given what you mentioned earlier, these models are constantly changing. So to be able to teach this in the legal environment, you need to follow the AI updates. That is like what the frontier models are doing, what products are out there. You need to understand the technology to some extent. You need to follow how AI is affecting legal practice and all those tools. You have to follow the legal updates on the law side, like what regulations there are across all the different states and as well as the federal government. And then there's the AI ethics side to track how are state bars giving out AI ethics guidance and also what's going on in terms of lawyers filing hallucinated cases and what are judges saying. So it's like to keep tabs on all that. There's no one at these law schools. Now there are some, but traditionally there's no one at a law school that's just like the AI person. So it's virtually impossible for one person who already has a full workload in some other subject area to now focus on all this and be able to teach it to a level where they could educate the next generation of lawyers at their law school.
Very cool. What's keeping you up at night? If we think about all these different routes AI can take in the field of law and elsewhere, where are you most concerned about where this could be heading? Let's talk about sort of the not so positive side of this from your point of view?
I don't have many concerns. I mean, for those in the AI space, you get headlines, you get attention when you say doom and gloom, where you say AI is going to do this or that, it's going to be the end of the world. It gets clicks, of course, but I mean, I don't really have anything in mind right now where I'm hugely concerned. With that said, I do think AI is going to replace lawyers, so that certainly would keep lawyers up at night. I'm a lawyer. I have my own law firm. I'm not concerned about that. I think AI replacing lawyers would be a great thing. The reality is no one really likes lawyers. Charge a lot of money. You only have a lawyer when you have a problem. They're basically just extra friction and costs when you're trying to run a business. So if you're able to remove that and provide legal services directly using an AI chatbot, I think that's a fantastic thing. And a lot of lawyers will not like to hear that because for them, it's a livelihood, it's a business. But if you do view lawyers as just some medium for the vindication of your rights and access to justice, then this position really shouldn't be there. If everyone just has access to justice and a free version of that through some AI representation, I think that would be great for society because more people can vindicate their rights. So that would keep a lot of lawyers up at night. But for me, I think it's actually a good thing for the long run for society.
I think we saw some evidence of that. I remember an article that was flying across a month or two ago where some locals in Northern California, I believe, were able to send some letters to their government and get something pushed through locally that they just wouldn't have. It would have been cost prohibitive for them to do that before, and it made a difference. I'm sorry, I can't recall more details on that specific instance, but I think it just lines up with exactly what you said in terms of people being able to have that the agency and empowerment for smaller, more basic things.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely comes with trade-offs. I mean, pro se litigants is a term in the legal space for someone who's self-represented. So if you can't afford a lawyer, is usually in the civil context, meaning these are not criminal cases. You're entitled to a lawyer when you're in the criminal context. But in the civil context, if you don't have a lawyer, you just got to do it yourself. So a lot of pro se litigants these days are using ChatGPT to draft their filings. And it has been reported that there's an increase in those filings because these non-represented parties just go to ChatGPT. Usually the arguments are a lot better structured. They could actually identify causes of action that are viable in court, but then it's filled with just fake case citations. So that's a trade off. Now the judiciary has to deal with those fake citations. The defense side has to spend time going through and researching all those fake cases. So it does lead to increased litigation costs for the defense and could lead to more work for the judiciary. But the trade off is now these people could actually bolster their arguments and get vindication in court.
Very cool. I want to dive in a little bit to, you mentioned a world where like lawyers are just sort of automated, sort of baseline access for everyone, lower costs to get that job done. I assume just like in most other fields, the entry level or associate position is the first one to go, right? Not a lot of experience, still learning. It takes a lot more work for that person to get to a good output than it would a partner, right? Do you kind of see that as the first role to go?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I've spoken to attorneys who are more senior and partner level where traditionally they would turn to an associate like, hey, give me a first draft of this contract or this motion or this pleading, basically all stuff you'd file in court, those latter two. And rather than doing that, they'll just open up Harvey or some other AI chatbot and just say, give me a first draft or outline of this topic. And then that happens in seconds. Whereas an associate, you'd assign it to an associate. They'll probably do it wrong the first couple times. It'll be back and forth, back and forth. So I do think it's going to be the younger associates' workflows that are the first to go. Because the reality is the best the first year associate could do is like a first draft of something. And that is essentially what AI is very good at doing. Of course, first year associates would have some better legal judgment in terms of finding real cases. They won't be finding hallucinated cases, but otherwise for drafting purposes, for document review, I think AI could exceed the performance of first year associates at this point in time.
So if we're first year associate, theoretically could just review the output of that first draft from an AI model and then just make sure there are no hallucinations. Then it gets passed up to a partner to put it to bed.
I do think that that is where we're going, where first year, second year, third year associates will basically just be orchestrators of AI tools that produce the first output. They have that extra level of verification. Then they pass it on to like partner level for the final additions and sign off. So I do think it's going to be like a SaaS based operational orchestrator type arrangement in law firms in the future.
Well,
Interesting. Help me paint the picture for this. I see a lot of regulation stuff coming out of Washington and coming out at the state level. Tennessee was a recent one I saw you posted about with some of their AI law policy that's coming to fruition here. Are regulators even asking the right questions yet around AI policy? Do you think this will be one of those cases where, well, one of the many cases where regulators are too slow to the market to actually help with any issues that could happen?
I'm not concerned with the current state of federal regulation. It's definitely it's a loaded subject. So for background, right now there's no comprehensive legislation at the federal level regulating AI development, deployment, anything like that. So it's in the absence of this federal action where states have stepped up because of course we have a federalism system where states share power, the federal government shares power. Whatever the federal government says is essentially law if it conflicts with state law. That would invalidate conflicting state laws. So the federal government could step in, and it's called federal preemption. They could preempt the field, which would basically eliminate state AI laws. But for now, since there is no federal standard, states have the freedom and the power to start regulating. And that's what we've seen. California has passed SB 53, which regulates the frontier model layer. Colorado passed the Colorado AI Act, which essentially categorizes different AI usage as high risk and then puts obligations on developers and deployers to do documentation, impact testing, reporting to state authorities. So states have stepped in with pretty stringent regulatory regimes. New York's another one. But then other states have either done nothing or just regulated niche use cases. So, for example, a very popular one is outlawing the creation of deepfake AI videos to influence elections 60 to 90 days before an election. So that's like regulating an application layer as opposed to the frontier models. So that's what we've seen happen. I'm not too concerned that there's no federal regulation. People will say, oh, the federal government's doing nothing. I think that's a good thing. It just means we're able to innovate. I think states are stepping in with very unwise policies. You referenced the one in Tennessee. There's a legislator in Tennessee who introduced a bill to try to criminalize the training of AI models that interact with children. And the first couple of provisions were it's a class A felony to train an AI model to encourage a child to commit suicide or self-harm. That's pretty clear cut. That's great. Who's going to disagree with that? But it goes on to then criminalize the training of an AI model that interacts with humans like a human, that imitates companionship. That is literally what AI chatbots are and what they do. So you can see these legislators don't fully understand the technology that they're actually trying to regulate, and it's going to lead to overregulation and really hinder innovation across the country.
How do you feel about Europe with the AI Act that they passed? Do you think it's too regulated and they should kind of be hands off and kind of leave it up to individual provinces or what be it?
Yeah, I think it's very misguided. The European Union, they were the first to jump and the first region to pass a comprehensive AI regulatory framework. And they jumped to do this in May 2024. So what they did was they created all these different categories of hypothetical risk. So they identified a bunch of use cases like unacceptable uses of AI that were totally banned. So they eliminated entire future areas of technology. Some of these areas include like biometric tracing, emotional tracking. So you can't create AI systems that track people's emotions in the education context or workplace, which to the average person sounds fantastic. Like, yes, let's ban that. That's creepy. But then you think about what about in the future if attendance is taken by scanning students' faces or just being in a classroom and you could take attendance? What if you're able to see students' emotional state day to day and identify students who are suffering from mental health issues or depression just using this data day to day? And maybe a human's not able to discern those patterns, but an AI system is. So there could be potential benefits of these technologies, yet Europe has jumped to totally ban innovation in all these categories. An intermediate ground would be creating like a sandbox. Utah has sandbox programs for different tech companies where you could build these tools and technologies in a very controlled environment because they may have risks, but there's oversight by state authorities to allow it to develop with certain guardrails. So Europe has just jumped totally to eliminate technology categories, very misguided. The US is obviously the leader in AI technology. We have the leading models here. China's a close second. And I think Europe has just legislated itself into a very distant third place. They have Mistral, and that's basically it in terms of AI models that are even close to performance to the US and China.
Got it.
And could you share a little bit about too how just like regulations with data centers, electricity, and kind of some of the legal side of this infrastructure build out that we're seeing in America? What are your thoughts on that? What's work? It's related, but it's also kind of a precursor to the application layer, right? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts along those lines, especially with energy and so on.
Yeah, so data centers, of course, very hot topic politically as well as in the legal context. And for background, for your listeners, I don't know, their understanding of data centers, but it's essentially it's the buildings where they store the hardware and GPUs, CPUs, which is the backbone, the infrastructure and physical backbone of large language model training and also the inference. So data centers, of course, have very strong implications for energy usage. It's still debated how much energy data centers are actually using, but Department of Energy, they projected that in 2023, or 0.4% of the country's electricity use actually went to data centers. That could go all the way up to 8% by 2028. An important distinction is that not all data centers are used for AI. Data centers that have been around for decades just to store data. Anything shared to the cloud is actually getting stored in a data center. So it's not just AI using up all this energy, but we've seen a lot of backlash in local communities. These data centers, they're hooking up to the utility grids, the local utility grids. So there have been complaints. I know New Jersey, Missouri, basically any state that has a data center, people are complaining that their electricity bills are going higher. And this is often due to the fact that when a data center comes into your area, they hook up to the utility grid. That utility grid must update their infrastructure to be able to handle that increase in load in megawatts. And then those utility companies will typically pass on the infrastructure costs, not only to the data center, but to all the residents that are hooked up to the utility grid. So it's not necessarily a data center using a lot of energy and then other people paying for it. It's that the infrastructure upgrades are being made, and then the utility companies are socializing that across the entire market. And that's why you'll see an increase in like what'll be usually labeled as like a service fee on your utility bill. So community members are pushing back because of that increased cost, environmental concerns. In Memphis, for example, Elon Musk has XAI. They have 2 hyperscale data centers there now, and they used allegedly turbines, gas powered turbines. And there's complaints in the community that that's leading to health issues and pollution. So you have environmentalists pushing back. Of course, these data centers use a lot of water for their cooling systems. So they draw on local water reserves. Those are some of the big concerns. And in some communities in Missouri, they've actually passed moratoriums, basically saying, not only are we going to vote down your project of a data center, we're going to pass a law that no data centers can be constructed in our community for like 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see that contrast. And what made me think of it was kind of what you were mentioning with Europe and regulations. I know there's tech bros over there who can't run their AC, let alone, right, put a data center into your local community. The contrast there geopolitically and just from an environmental point of view, it couldn't be more stark on how we've seen that narrative shift. And like you said, we kind of have to go forward in this direction, but it's just how does it work? What does it look like? And I know there's a lot that remains to be seen along those lines, but I really appreciate that breakdown because there's so many layers to that most of us don't think about unless it's a headline or it's affecting our local community, such as Memphis, like you mentioned. So that's super insightful.
Yeah, what makes it fascinating is this is like a national and international priority for the US. Like we need data centers to power our AI models so that we stay competitive on the national and international stage. Yet it's such a local issue because to get a data center done, you need local permitting. So like it's these local communities that actually have the final approval on the building. Yet you're talking about something that's of national and international importance.
And, it's interesting to me how we think about this, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I have my own reasons. I'm curious what you think as to why, as America, we're truly taking a lead in this investment of this infrastructure build out, not only short term, but also future and long term. Why do you think it is of national security and of importance, that level of importance for us to invest and lead in this infrastructure build out for today and the next 20 years? What does that mean? Why is that true? Because I feel like there's a lot of different reasons, but I'm curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the US being able to control basically what's going to be the infrastructure of the entire future. Governments are now integrating AI. You have, of course, businesses integrating AI. It's either we're going to be the ones that control the core infrastructure upon which governments and businesses operate and all of society now. Over 900 million weekly active users on ChatGPT. So it's either we're going to control the entire infrastructure, which comes with data, which comes with the ability to also control possible outputs from these models, or we're going to let an adversary control the backbone of basically what's going to be society. So I think that's really the importance of this. And China is obviously making strong inroads in the Pacific region through their open source approach with getting businesses to download that. So they have data controls, but obviously that's a strategy they're trying to do because they're not there yet in terms of their proprietary model performance compared to the US. So it's either we're going to be the backbone of societies going forward, or it's going to be an adversary. I think that's really the geopolitical importance and economic importance of it.
Yeah, I'm even seeing like a lot of companies that did Bitcoin mining and have all the infrastructure to support something like an AI model now transition into like, let's just move off of Bitcoin, given everything with the volatility there, to just supporting these AI models, because that is a revenue stream that is not going anywhere anytime soon. So that's a really interesting play that I've seen recently.
I hope they stick to Bitcoin though. I got a lot heavily invested in Bitcoin, so
Yeah.
want to see that go back up. We'll
Yeah.
see.
That's true. Trust me.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. As you mentioned, kind of the models shaping governments across the world of the future, and how our investment into that infrastructure literally will shape that and having to lead that. So that's a super fascinating point of view. My point of view on that was as it relates to TikTok and our concerns over data and information security, and even Huawei phones, right? As we think about the next generation of infrastructure. Obviously, we have the software or the AI model itself, right? Just like the internet. But once it starts getting into the hardware layer with robots and these types of physical devices that are powered by the AI model, I don't know. I'm a strong believer that we probably, as Americans, don't want 100 million Chinese robots walking around on our soil, right? And so, for both the software and hardware, I foresee American continuing to invest in this infrastructure and owning it, right? Because letting that out into the wild or being fully outsourced or dependent on that, it's just, we can't do that anymore, like we have been doing the last 50 years. So, really, really well said on your end.
Yeah, and I'll also say that you have a lot of people who are like the alarmists saying AI is going to lead to the end of the world and destruction, all these bad harms for society. The reality is that for those people, they want to regulate AI in the US. We could do that and we kneecap our own AI industry. All these other adversarial countries will be the ones that cause all those harms. It's everything has to be viewed through the international context and us being the leader, especially when you're talking about AI regulation in the US. So I think that's an important context as well.
Super interesting. Or want to start to wrap this up a little bit. Want to do a few quick hit questions. We like to do this lightning round session where we just kind of ask you like this or that type of thing, just quick feedback from you. First thing, regulation or innovation. If you could only protect one right now, which one would you choose? I think I know.
Innovation, 100%.
Love it. Who's the one person in AI you think everyone should be listening to more that they may not know about today?
No single person, I mean, I don't think a single person, myself included, knows what's going on fully. I think an example of that is, I don't know if you recall, March 2023, over 30,000 AI experts signed an open letter saying we need to pause AI development for 6 months because it's too powerful. And that's back when we had GPT-4. They literally were saying it's going to be like the end of the world. 30,000 people signed on. We need to stop this. It's going too fast. Now we're at GPT-5 and the world's still here. We've not seen this catastrophic risk or concerns. I think it just goes to show even the people who are the experts building the models, they don't fully understand the geopolitical consequences. They don't understand the regulatory side. And a lot of lawyers using the AI may not know the tech side. I don't think there's any single person that knows the implications across the tech, society, regulation, how it affects other niche domains. So I don't think there's ever going to be a single person that you could go to as like the go-to authority for this. And myself included, I'm certainly not.
5 years from now, what are all associates doing and what are some partners doing instead of practicing law?
I think we're gonna have a SaaS-based model for legal services where you could buy access and subscriptions to like I used to work at Jones Day and Skadden Arps, big law firms. You could buy access to their chatbot. And you're a general counsel, you could chat with that chatbot, get a preliminary answer back, and then it'll be lawyers and associates who could review and like check off and verify the answer. And I think this meets two needs. Clients need an answer literally instantaneously, and they're willing to rely on less than perfect legal advice, just given the urgency. So I think that meets that need where you get an immediate response, somewhat curated on a legal firm's document set and data, but then also that human layer, which will take more time, but then you get that validated final answer. So I do think we'll see a SaaS-based shift in the delivery of legal services.
Oliver Roberts from Wickard AI. Wickard AI, go to their website, check it out. A lot of great work going on there in terms of understanding what's going on in the world of AI law and policy, how you can get ahead, how you can stay ahead, and how you can best solve your cases with the superpower that we now have. Oliver, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. We'll be following your journey and all the best to you.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.